In this video, we are going to build this weather application using React and Redux, and to be precise, using reduxtoolkit. And you're going to use external API called Open Weather API. Alright, so before we get started, let's look at a demo for this project. So for this project, we can search for any city around the world. So let's search for Chicago, and then let's hit enter. And we see that we have a spinning that comes, and then all of a sudden we get back our dynamic data. Alright, so this icon here is dynamic based on the weather condition, and it's giving you the temperature pertaining to that, and then give you the details about the weather condition in this city. Alright, so you might be thinking that, well, this application using Redux is overkill. Yes, of course. But reduxtoolkit is made pretty easy with less code. So if you're new to reduxtoolkit, I'll provide a link to my complete playlist on reduxtoolkit, and then after that you can come back to this project and see how easy to use reduxtoolkit in your project. Alright, so the purpose for this project based on three things. One, I'm going to teach you how to use external API in your React application, and then also teach you how to implement reduxtoolkit in this project. So the purpose for this is that I just want you to be conversant with the reduxtoolkit too. Alright, so with that being said, let's get started to code. So I have provided all the starter templates. I don't want to spend my time on the designing part, so I have provided the starter template. If you go to my GitHub repository, I will provide a link to go there, and then let me show you the repository that we're gonna take. If you click on you see the YouTube tutorials project, and all what I want you to do is you can give me a star, fork it, and clone. As soon as if you fork it, anytime you make a pull request, you can get any update I've uploaded into this YouTube tutorials project. Alright, so if you click on that, I have named it according to the project that I'm building. So the first one going to be the weather app, and my next project is going to be the GitHub Finder. Alright, so for this one, if you click on that, we have two folders. One will be the weather app starter template and the actual project. Alright, so as soon as I finish this project, you will see that the final project will be added to this project. By the time of watching this video, maybe you're not seeing it, the final project too. So click on the starter template, and you can clone this one, and then there we go. Alright, or better still, if you want to start from scratch and want to use any of these components, you just come to SRC, and then the app component, you just copy and paste it inside. Alright, so with that being said, let's get back to code and then start implementing it. Alright, so let's initiate our React application. So npx create React app. I'll make my weather app. Alright, so let's wait while it is bootstrapping the React application for us. Alright, so while we are waiting for it to be bootstrapping the React application, let's go to Google and then search for Open Weather Map API. And for this, the API is pretty easy to use. So all what you need is you have to create an account. If you don't have an account, create one, and the account creation is also pretty simple to do. So as soon as you log in, it will greet you with this dashboard. So we have a couple of API that we can hit. So the one that we are going to focus on is this one, current weather data. Alright, so click on API docs, and then this API docs, all what we need is we're going to make a call to this endpoint. Alright, and it needs the city name and the API key, and that's all what you need. And you can get your API key. So if you go to the drop down of your profile, you can see my API keys. And to remember I have to log in first before I can get access to my API keys. Alright, so API keys here, and then this is my API key. I will reset this API key after this project. Alright, so make sure you copy this one to the clipboard, and then let's check our terminal it has finished. So let me clear the console and then let me cd into the weather app and open it in my preferred code editor. All right, so let me rearrange my desktop well, like that. Cool. Make the font a little bit bigger. You can see from this end. All right, there we go. All right, so the next thing is let's install the tools we are going to need. First of all, we are going to make use of Axios to make HTTP call. So yarn add Axios. You're going to install these 3 packages. Going to install reduxtoolkit like that, and then React Redux. All right, so like I said, I have a complete playlist on reduxtoolkit. Okay, so with that being said, let's hit enter. So while it's waiting, let's go back to our project and start coding. All right, before I forget, the CSS framework we're going to use is called Tailwind CSS. All right, I love this CSS framework a lot. So if you can use any CSS frameworks of your choice, but for me, I'm going to use Tailwind CSS. All right, so click on getting started, and we have 2 ways of installing Tailwind CSS. So start learning and the installation, you can go by this. If you go by this option, you have all the utility functions, the autocomplete, other stuff. But because this application is not any large application, let's go down and use the CDN. Okay, so scroll down and then let's go to CDN, this one. All right, so let's copy that and then let's go back to our project. All right, so public and then index. So here let's paste it here and then change the name here to weather app. All right, just like that. Cool. All right, so the next thing is that, so let me take you through about Tailwind CSS. It's all about the class names, right? So Tailwind CSS is not like Bootstrap or other framework. You have to build the component by yourself, right? You have to build the component by yourself, and it gives you a customized look as compared to other CSS frameworks. Okay, so we're not going to spend my time here. If you want to dive into Tailwind CSS, you can do so at your free time. So I've already made the components ready for you inside the starter template. All right, so you can clone this one, and then all what you need is you have to cd into this project and then initialize the node modules and you're good to go. All right, so if you want to follow step by step, then let's get going like what I'm doing here. All right, now that we have, so let's check our package.json file to make sure that all the installations are complete. Well, it's done. Toolkit is here. We have Axios and we have React Redux. Okay, so if you're new to reduxtoolkit, like I said, let's visit reduxtoolkit.js.org. And one more time, I have a complete playlist on this. So it's pretty easy. This is what Redux team even recommend that we should use reduxtoolkit instead of traditional way of writing Redux, right? It makes it pretty easy with less code. Okay, so with reduxtoolkit, so I'll explain a little bit while I'm proceeding in this course. So let's create our folders here. So first of all, let's create a component. Even it's a little component, let's create one folder called Redux. All right, Redux. And inside the Redux, I'm gonna create 2 folders. One will be my store, right? And the Redux 2, I have what is called slicing. So slices are, let me say, the reducers in your actions. All right, so reduxtoolkit make it pretty easy to implement. So let's see how we can even create our store within a minute. All right, so inside the store, let's create one file and then .js. All right, so let's close these tabs and then let's start creating our store. So here, let's import something from reduxtoolkit called configure store. So what configure store does is it gives us all the functions and the properties we need to create our store. Alright, so if you're using a traditional Redux, you see that even before you can get your store running, you need a lot of packages to be installed. But with this Redux toolkit, it makes it pretty easy. Let's see how we're going to do that. So let's create a variable called const store is equal to configure store, and here all what you need, the required here is called reducer, right? And then let's assign, for now we don't have any reducer here, so reducers are just like a piece of state, all right, in your application. Then let's export default the store like that. All right, so next thing that we have, now that we have configured our store, you see that with even 5 lines of code, right, we are done with creating our store. So how easy? So with this configure store, it gives us all the methods and functions like Redux tank, dev2 extension, and many other things that we can think of that can make up your store. So with this, let's head over to our main entry file called index.js file, and then let's bring in our store. But before that, we need to wrap our component with a provider from React Redux. All right, so here let's bring in provider like that, and this provider too, we need to pass in our store. So let's bring in our store that we created. All right, now we have our store is here, we have our store, and then we have our provider. So all what I need, I have to wrap. So let me remove this one and provide here the provider. All right, and then the only prop it takes is the store. So with this, let's try to run our application and yarn start. Okay, so while it is bootstrapping, we cannot wait, so let's get going, and when it's finished, we come back to it and test that everything is working. All right, now we have finished creating our store, even though we haven't seen it yet, but we're going to see it very soon. So let's remove some files you don't need here. All right, because we're going to use a complete component that I've created for you. All right, so let's create one subfolder here called img, like so. All right, and first of all, let's work on the Redux part. So here inside the slices, let's create one file called weather slices, because .js. So slices are mainly your actions and reducers, right? So let's get going. So how can we create our action and our reducers? You see, so let's get started. So here we are also going to import some things from Redux toolkit. So import, first of all, we are going to require what is called create async tank. Create async tank. So this is going to help us to create our action that will make a call to external API. And then next one will be my create slice, right? So create slice also generates automatically my action creators and my reducers, right? So with this one, let's see how we can create our action. Okay, so here, because we are going to export multiple functions from this file, let's make it export const, and the name of my action, let me call this one fetch weather action, like so. And I'm going to make use of create async tank, right? And this is a function, and the first argument it takes is your action type. So let me call this one weather slash fetch. Okay, so this will be my action type. I'm going to see it very soon. All right, so let's check my console and see that, okay, I have the application running on the same port. So let me change it like this to this port. So let me show you the action. So for this final project, as soon as you search for any city, let's look at the actions that comes in. You can see that all these actions are coming in from that. All right, so application has opened here, and automatically, what do I see? I see my Redux my store being configured without any Redux dev extension 2 or whatever. So with these 5 lines of code, we're able to create our store like this. So how awesome Redux toolkit is. All right, so let's get going. Alright, so let's go back to the slices, our action, and continue creating our action. Where is it? Let me rearrange it well, like so. Okay, cool. So one, this create async thing takes two things. One is going to be your action type, right? And the next is going to be the action that's going to make a call to the external API. And this function is anonymous function like this. All right. And in here, inside the function argument here, we have access to the payload. The payload means that the data you want to send to the API to make the request. But before that, let's bring in Axios, right? The one we installed like so. So here we have access to some props that they pass in here. We can access here. So the first one will be my payload. The payload is what I'm going to receive from the front end when you make the request. And the next one will be some other properties you might be interested of. So we want to destructure these ones inside the function here. And the one we're going to make use of course, reject with value. So this one is going to help us to handle and display a user-friendly error to the users. The next one will be my snapshot of my get state here. I can have access to my store inside this create action and what is called a dispatch. I can also dispatch an action from this function as well. Alright, so if you're using traditional Redux, you could see that we need to implement your Redux tank or Saga by yourself. But with this one, it's given to us automatically without even installing Redux tank. Alright, to get access to dispatch inside here. Alright, so now that we have passed in our function, because I want to make use of async await, I will mark my function as an async like that. So inside my function body, let's make use of try and catch here like so, and what we can guess gonna be const. Let's make the request to the external API. So let me call this one response is equal to await because of I've marked my function as async and get. So if you go back to the API documentation, weather API, if you go to APIs one more time, we are going to copy the endpoint we are going to hit under docs, this one. So let's copy that and then come back into our application and paste it here. Make sure you add http semicolon//. All right, and here we are going to inject some things because it requires that we have to pass in the CD name and then API key. So the API key, I can get my API key also under, where is it? Let me go to my name. Sorry, not this one. This drop down and then my API key. I forgot, I didn't paste it, and then let me copy this and then paste it here. So after the, let me show you, after the query cd name and API key equal to, so let's replace with this one, with this API key, right? So let me paste it here. Let me remove this one and paste it here like that. So this name must be dynamic. So that's a payload we're going to pass. Sorry, it's not pet load, but it's payload. That will be the cd name. So let's replace this one with this cd name like that. But let me use dynamic here like that. But we can even secure our API key. So in React we can pass in our environment variables like this. So here let's create one file called .env. Alright, and if we want to use .env environment variables in React, all what we need is we have to first of all append the name React and then app and the name of your API key. So open weather key. So with this we can access this environment variables inside our component on the process.env. So let's go to our slices, and instead of, let me copy this one, instead of just putting the keys here like that, let's make it more real. So here let's remove it from here, and then let's inject dynamic variables here, and we can access it on process.env dot our variable name. All right, so now we get back our response. So let's preview the structure from here, data. All right, and then let's return the data to the user. Return data. Okay, so now we have our function. Let me call this one action. Now our reducers, we're going to handle our reducers, and this is what you call slices, right? It's what you call slices. So this is how you create the slices. So let me call this one slices. So slices are just like a piece of state. Let me call your reducers, right? Taken that way. All right, so our slice goes like this. Cons, make it whether slices equal to create slice, and let's take an object, right? And the first thing will be the name of my reducer, right? And here is called, let me make it whether here. And the next one is going to be your initial state. So initial state, what will be the state of your application? Initial state is empty. And here, let's handle our actions inside a reducer. So this is how we handle actions inside our reducers. All right, we have two ways. We have what is called the map notation and object notation. So we're going to use the object notation. That's what the Redux team recommend that we should use, what the builder notation. All right, so with this, we're going to pass another property called extra reducers, and this one we map to a function like that. And inside this function, we're going to build up our action and then map it according to reducers. So here inside this function, we have what is called builder. All right, builder. All right, so let me open this, and then builder, and then add case from Redux toolkit. And which case? The case will be my action type, right? So for this action type, it has three things. One, when it's pending, because we're making a request, we have three things: pending, fulfilled, and then like this, and then rejected. So you need to handle all these states inside our reducers, and this create action time gives us all these one automatically. So how can we access the state when it's pending and fulfilled and rejected? So let's get going. So let me remove this one. So remember that it has these three things you need to handle inside our reducers, our slices. So like I said, I have a complete playlist on the Redux toolkit. If you are not familiar with it, you can check it out. All right, okay, so here for this add case tool, it have to take what is a function, right? And then first of all, we need to pass in our action. And then first of all, let's handle when it's pending, right? Pending. When it's pending, we need to pass another function. And then here we have access to our state and our action, like that. And then here we can make changes to our state. So here, let's say handle, let me call this one pending. Yeah, pending. All right, so here let's do the logic here. So when it's loading, let's add a property called loading to true, because in pending is true. Now we have handle the pending state. Next one is let's add our case when fulfilled. Okay, and then the same thing, add case builder dot add case, and this time around is fulfilled. When fulfilled, we have access to our state, our response. So here we're going to add another property called whether, right? And it's equal to action dot payload. All right, you'll be saying where from this question mark, right? This question mark is a short form of avoiding using AND operator. So I can say action and action dot payload, right? The same thing, but I want to make it simpler. That's why I mean the question mark dot payload. All right, so at this point, let's put loading to true, because as soon as we get back the data, let's put loading to false, and then there'll be no error at this point. So let's say state.error, okay, is also equal to undefined. So these properties will be available on our initial state as soon as these action calls are being triggered, right? So now we have it. The next one is let's handle when it's rejected. So here we're going to be rejected. All right, rejected. So let's get going. Also, builder, you see the pattern now. If you're familiar with this one, you can see how pretty cool it is. So action, and then like that, and let's handle our state. At this point, loading is also false, and then state.weather application, the actual state too is also undefined. So we are clearing everything when there's an error, and the most importantly, let's add the error property to it. It's equal to action.payload. Okay, so now we are handling these three states inside. All right, so next let's come here. When something goes wrong, we didn't handle it here. When something goes wrong, all right, so here we are going to check. First of all, we want to send a friendly error to the end user when something goes wrong, right? So let's check. So this is how we're going to do it. If there is no error dot response, it means there is no error response. Okay, response. Then let's throw the original error. Otherwise, let's send a user-friendly error using the rejected value, reject with value, this one that we got from the action, this one. And then this is a function, pass in our error and dot response dot the data. Okay, so the last thing is we need to extract our reducers from this. So this create slice gives us two things: our action creators, our reducers, because we have our action creator here. So here let's also export. So export, let's export default, and then on the weather slice is like this, weather slice dot reducer. So with this, let's go back to our application, our store, and map this reducer. Okay, map this reducer to our store. So where is it here? So inside our store, inside this reducer, where is it? Yeah, this reducer. Let's bring in our weather reducer. So import weather reducer is equal from 11 dot slices and then weather slices, and let's map this one to weather reducer. All right, so with this one, let's go check our application if everything is working perfectly. This is the final one. This is what we are working on. So let's click on that. Let me even close this one for now because we are done with it. So let me bring it here. Okay, so I think it's loading. All right, so now that we have it, I think let's check. Okay, it's done. So let's check our states here. Let me put the dev2 here, make it bigger. So let me refresh it again, and you can see that no action has been triggered, right? So let's try to put some initial state inside our reducer. So for now, let's just put something. Let's say data. Let me call this one loaded. So let's go back to the application, refresh it, and let's check our initial state, our store. We have it, that loaded. Did you see that? Okay, so now let's try to dispatch our action inside this component. So how can we do that? Well, but before that, let's bring in our designs. So like I said, if you didn't clone the project, the startup project, what you can do is you can come to the project, the YouTube tutorial project, and then under weather app, I have the weather app starter template starter. So click on the SRC and you're working on the app component. All right, so let's copy everything from here, all these components. All right, so don't worry about the CSS with this form. So let's copy everything from here and then come back to our application. So where I have the React app, let me replace everything. Oh, sorry, everything with this one. So You're going to have some errors import because of this. So the next one is I have an image, right? So if you go back to the application, you see that it will crash because the image is not available yet inside. So what you can do is that you can download that image. Where is it? My weather app. Okay, the next one going to be the image. So let's go to the weather app and then the starter template, SRC, and then image img folder. So we can download this, and I have downloaded that image already. So I'm going to drag that image inside my img folder like that. It just SVG. So with this one, if you go back to the application, let's refresh it, and there we go. We have our starter template. There's nothing fancy going on. All the styling. So these are the SVG files I just used. Okay, or you can use any SVG files you want, and make sure the path you require the path as required. Okay, so now that we have that one, let's go back to the component and try to trigger our action. So how can we dispatch an action from this component? And reduxtoolkit and Redux make it pretty easy with their hooks. So before we can dispatch any action from your component, you need to bring in what is called use dispatch from React Redux as that. All right, and then you also need use selector if you want to select piece of state from your store. So use selector like that. So use selector select piece of state from our store, and then you dispatch an action. And you may need a hook for use effect, because you on the component mount we also want, sorry, not use state, is use effect. You want to call the action as soon as the component also mount. Okay, so with this, the next thing is let's bring in our action. Remember, our action is called fetch weather action. So let's go back to the app component, and then let's bring in the action. Auto import. I got it. Okay, so how can we dispatch the action from here? All you need is that. So let's comment here, say dispatch action. So you create an instance of use dispatch, like it's a function, you assign to a variable called dispatch. All right, so here let's bring our use effect on the component mount. I want to dispatch the action on component mount, and this effect takes a function and then the parameters, the dependencies, sorry. So in here, let's bring our dispatch, and then you pass in our action called fetch weather action. And remember, this requires what? Requires a city. So let me call this one New York, like that. So with this, let's check our application and see use effect is not defined. Use effect, where is it? Use, not uses effects, but use effect. Okay, so with this, when I refresh application on the component mount, our action be called, and there we go. You see, we have rejected. It says that our API key is not valid. You see, we are handling the errors nicely in our application, right? You see that the key is invalid because the API key is not valid. So let's go back to the user slides. I think the .env file API ID is equal to, so let's try to console log this and see if we can get back our keys. So console.log and then let's access the keys here. Let's check if everything goes right or wrong. In our console is undefined, so we are not able to access our keys. That is why it says that. So it's .env. Oh my god, so to be equal to the value of my keys. Sorry guys. All right, so let's go to members, copy that, and inside here equal to the keys. You see that we are handling the errors, everything gracefully. So this time around, let's try to refresh the application, refresh, and let's see what we have. Loading through rejected. Still, the API key is invalid. Well, okay, maybe I have to restart the server because I haven't changed to the environment variable. I think that is why it is giving me that error. So let's restart the application. All right, so let's check. Let's look at the API key. Okay, the API key is here. Did you see? It's inside our console. So let's check our dev extension too and see. There we go. We have our data back. You see? Good. So now let's access these states inside our component, and it's going to be pretty easy because of use selector inside our component. Okay, so inside the app, here inside the app, let's make use of the use selector, right? Use selector. But before that, all right, so it's cool. So let's handle the, okay, let's start with the use selector. So let's select a piece of state and then display it as necessary. So let's make use of, let me comment here called select state from store. All right, so use selector is also takes, okay, let me slowly, let me call it cons, let me call this one state is equal to use selector, use selector, like that. And this one takes a function as a callback, and this function, the only argument it takes is your state, and this state contains all the states in your store. So ES says if I want to return one of code, I can even return state like that. Okay, and let's try to console log the state that we have in our store. So let's check our console. You see the actions are triggering. The action types we pass in pending, fulfilled, and then fetched, fulfilled. All right, good. So let's check our console and see if we have the data back. There we go. So now we have data. So let's remove this one, the default initial state, from our slices here. Where is it? Initial state. Okay, let's give it an empty object. Okay, cool. All right, so let's access this one and display the images as necessary. Okay, so let's get going. So inside the app, now we have access to the weather. So here comes, let's destructure the thing that we need. Okay, and here we need what? The weather itself, and then loading. Remember from our console and the error. All right, and you see that I've commented some fields. So on this weather, we have all the details that we need, properties. So let's go back to the, let me put this one here first, the code here like that. So you can see that inside our console, we have this state on the weather. And here we're going to retrieve or map all the images. But how can we append the image? It's a little bit weird here. So if you go back, let's check the weather, and then it's an array of objects, and then we have the weather array 1, and then we have description, and then we have the icon. So how can we display this icon? This icon is not a NPG or PNG or whatever. So I Googled it and I found a way of converting this one into the real icon. Alright, so here now we know that we have our states in our details inside a component. So let's place them as necessary. Alright, so let's go down. You see that I've commented, we work on the input and the button here, and the content goes here. Alright, but you can see that the weather logo goes here. Remember, we have access to the icon, right? Icon here inside our weather details. So first of all, let's try to display the icon. And to display the icon, all what we need is this URL from the Open Weather Map. And what we need is that you have to pass the icon name here, and then you append that PNG, and that's all what you need. All right, so let's implement that. So let's get the icon from the states. So here, let's scroll down and see where we have the image. All right, and we can guess, we can have access to the image. So let's uncomment this one back, and then we have access to this URL, like I showed you. This one. Oh, what I need, you have to put in the dynamic icon based on the weather response. So let's go down here, and on the weather from the store, we have to grab the array 0 and dot icon, and it's going to give the size of the icon. So with this one, let's try to refresh the application, and then let's see whether can I get the image inside that. All right, so while it's loading, let's check, let's go again, and then if you want to get the actual weather name, whether it is cloudy, it's clouds, or it's windy, this one gives you that. So on the weather, we grab the first index and a property called name. So let's check what we have. There we go. We see that we have dynamic, and then the cloud name is called clouds. So it is clouds now. It's cloudy at this point. Okay, so let's get going, and then the next one will be the temperature, because you have this icon, this symbol here, and to get the actual temperature. So if you go back to the console, you can see that we have. Oh, let me console log the actual state so that we can see what we are working on. All right, the state. Okay, so let's see what we are working on. Cool. All right, so now the icon is from this. It's from the under system, sorry, under weather, and then we have the first one, the icon, and then the name, the first index, and the main is called clouds. That's what we see here. Okay, so that's all what you're doing. Good. So let's continue. Let's go down, and then we have the weather logo, and then if you look at the temperature, it gives me some decimals, right? Let's check where is it? The main. We see that the temperature, it gives me what the some decimal point, and I don't want that. I want to convert to a whole number, right? That's why I'm using map.ceil, right? So let's uncomment this one back, and then the same one, map.ceil. So let's check what we have. It's 298 degrees Celsius. All right, it's clear weather, and that's what we have. Okay, and if you want to get a country, right, the same thing, you're just grabbing a piece of state from the store and then just place it inside with CSS like that. So the country give you like this one, New York. The one you search default is this one in the country. All right, and here the weather condition in weather, so the details. So let's uncomment that. So all you can see is that I'm just embedding dynamic state data from the store, from our store. So with this one, it gives you the weather condition in weather.main, and this gives me space. You can remove that. All right, and then this one gives you the country description and the temperature, and I convert this one to a whole number of degrees Celsius and humidity of some percent. Okay, so these are they give me the empty spaces. Okay, cool. So that one gives me the empty space like that. Okay, so now we have it. So last thing is I have to what? This logo. The same thing. Let's go down and then uncomment that. Okay, so let's check. There we go. Alright, so the last thing you need to handle is how to make it dynamic. So as soon as we enter some text here and make search, it's going to give us the actual response. So let's handle that. So this is how we handle forms in React. So let's bring in our use state here, and then for this use state, I want to handle only city. So use state is going to be city, and by default let's provide Chicago like that, and then city, and the input here in the input, let's provide value. The value is going to be the value from where? From the city, from our state, our use state. And then on change, based on change, let's also handle, we have access to E, and then let's update our set city. We have access to e.target.value. Okay, so with this, let's try and check. We see how Chicago is there, but how can we dispatch the action? Okay, so inside the button here, we are going to dispatch the action. So on the first stage, we are dispatching it automatically on the component mount, and when we click on the button, we won't dispatch the same action. So here on click, okay, and then anonymous function here like that, and then dispatch. And then let's bring in our fetch weather action. Then you pass in the city from our state, from our use state. So with this, if you hit enter, let's check our console, our extension 2, everything's working. Let's search for New York. Like that. So let's hit enter and see that our action is working. We have New York, but there is no spinning state or error if something goes wrong. So let's handle that. Okay, so where we have the, let me make it a little bit smaller for you to see the overview. Okay, so we want to have the loading. We have the loading from our store, and error. So how can we get that one done? So beneath the content goes here. So let's click on the wrapper here on line 55 on my code down to line number 100 on my code. Let's select all of these ones and cut it because we want to render the loading and error. So first, let's check if it is loading. If it is loading, let's have some loading state. So let me say loading, please wait. Okay, if it's not loading and there is an error, okay, let's also display the error, and here let's provide dynamic error. So on that we have what is called message. Okay, but if there is no error, therefore let's paste our actual response. So with this, let's try to refresh, and you can see that, let's refresh it, and you can see that we have a loading at onset, but I don't think it's visible because the text is black. It's a black, and then the background is also like a dark gray, so you don't see the effect, right? So let's add some class names to the loading. So with this one, from Tailwind CSS, we have a class name. A class is called. If you want to make the text a little bit, change the color of the text, you add the text and the gray. You can reference the documentation. So the gray, if it's loading, let me say the gray should be 400, and then the size of the text, make it 4XL, and then let me align to the center of my not container like that. Sorry, it's not, it's like this. Okay, so this one, we see we have the loading. As soon as I refresh the application, you saw the loading, right? And for the error too, we can even copy the whole of the CSS, the class names here, and then paste it here, and then let's change the color to red. Just change this one to red, and there we go. All right, so let's try to trigger some error. So I think for this one, for this error, let's reduce the font size to, let's say, 2. So let's try to trigger some errors inside application. So let's go back to our keys. Let's try to trigger the keys. Okay, so let's change some dynamic. Let's change the keys. So let's refresh it, and then let's see what we have. Let's restart the application. Well, it still gives me this. So let's check the console. It's fulfilled because I have to, make changes to the .env file. You need to restart your server. So let's go back to the slides here, and then let's change. Let's say, let's refuse to provide the API key. Okay, like this, and let's try to refresh it, and let's see what's going to happen. Let's wait for, there we go, invalid API key. See the documentation for more info. Okay, so guys, it's off. So let me bring it back. Okay, let me bring it back here, and let's try to refresh this time around. There we go. All right, so guys, here ends the tutorials on weather map application. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this.